which takes us to item number 8, the first of the substantive issues on the agenda, the COVID-19 briefing, and to welcome to the call Ian Maxwell, who's here, and I think Kate Crawford, the Group Controller of AEM, who is online. Are you there, Kate? Because I think you're leading.
Yes, good morning, I'm here.
Good morning, Kate. So the floor is yours, and then I'll invite Ian to make some comments, and we will at that point go to questions and to comments from councillors. Kate, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you. I will spend a few minutes walking through the key operational updates for the past 7 days since we last spoke, and I'll be covering off about 7 areas, including some policing matters that may be of interest. So over the last 7 days, we've continued to lead the design, implementation and the ongoing operational delivery of the food parcels to families in immediate hardship. This is our core area of work, and these are the programs that involve the Council Call Centre, Spark Arena, Countdown and New Zealand Couriers, as well as the new edition of the National Food Distribution Process that will commence later this week. We have, and I'll give you just a very brief rundown of the numbers that we've received since last night. So total calls to the 0800 number since the start of this operation is 8,127. So total calls of assistance that we've been able to support directly is 5,054 of those calls. The remaining 3,073 calls required our support to refer them into the appropriate services that could help them further, and these are services such as MSD. So the calls in the last 24 hours was 1,943, and this is up from yesterday's calls, which was 881. We believe that this is due to the publicity of our phone number, which has also taken place this morning. So we're ensuring that we're best placed to manage any surge in calls for assistance that may come due to that. So in total, the number of parcels that have been delivered to date is 3,250. And I can confirm that we've, in addition to the 0800 calls, we have also this morning through our Po Whakaari team, working with Marae and whānau order providers and whānau order, have started a comprehensive food package delivery operation to Kaumātua and whānau who are also in need of our support. So moving on to another core area of business for us at the moment in our delivery of the Auckland Emergency Management response is our work with the border. So as you may be aware from our last communications with you, we have undertaken some coordination roles in the past few weeks to support the activity of New Zealanders returning from overseas, as well as supporting foreign nationals who are exiting New Zealand. We have now received an order that we are to assume as Auckland Emergency Management full responsibility for the coordination of the regional operational partners in both of the deliverables of these services. What this means is that we will be ensuring that there is good communication, steady process, coordinated process, and a coordinated approach to supporting those that will require assistance to sit out their isolation or quarantine here in Auckland, as well as ensuring that we are supporting those that are trying to return back to their country of origin. We've been working for the past 2 weeks with New Zealand Police and the national agencies to do a transition plan, which we will be invoking today. This is a very robust operational plan, and I'm happy to provide some further information in our updates that go out later in the week. We're just waiting for permission to be able to release some of that detail. Further to this, we've also been providing some ad hoc support services to areas such as Great Barrier Island and Kaua Island, and I can confirm that one of these matters is now has been transferred to New Zealand Police to see forward. This is the matter of vessels arriving at the island over the past 2 weeks. I can confirm that Maritime Police has actually attended and spoken to each of these vessels directly to confirm whether or not they are in breach of the isolation rules under level 4 restrictions. It has been advised to me that the response from the vessels to the police has been satisfactory to the most part, and the majority of the vessels aren't breaking any isolation rules. However, the New Zealand Police will continue working with ourselves and other partner agencies such as Coast Guard to ensure that this is a monitored activity. Through Maritime Police, we've also been able to ascertain quite good level of detail from the vessel owners and those who are on board. So we were able to communicate with them if any other issues were to arise, such as the severe weather warning that is coming this weekend. We will continue to work with New Zealand Police, however, they have taken the lead on this now, but we can act as a conduit to pass information to them. So if I may move now to highlight some of the key activity from our Pou Whakaari self within our incident management structure. So we have an ongoing roster connecting iwi and marae to check in and identify any welfare needs on a daily basis. This is in conjunction with our 0800 service and also communicating with other agencies such as the Northern Regional Health Coordination Centre. We continue to liaise with agencies as part of the agency's focus on Māori to coordinate the approach taken. And we have delivered 14,000 COVID-19 signage packages in both Te Reo and English throughout South and West Auckland. They continue to collate and distribute information on services available for Māori and in areas with high Māori populations for distribution through networks and in response to requests for this information. They've established processes working alongside our welfare team to identify and define further support to Maori using our 0800 number, and we will continue to update you on that progress. Working with marae and funeral directors and others to support appropriate communications with tangihanga is our focus and priority, and Tanya is on the line to address any questions that you may have for that. Working alongside intelligence, welfare and logistics functions within our emergency management system is also very integral at the moment to handle any requests for food by Maori organisations who wish to distribute food packages themselves. And we are starting to work on a Māori-centred recovery plan as part of our overall recovery process. And later today, Tanya and I will be holding a telephone call with the National Crisis Management Centre to provide an overview of the areas of work under Pou Whakaari and also to provide some assistance with how they can use some of the great work that is happening here across the country and to ensure that we are aligned with others. Just a quick note on staff deployments. So our staff deployments that are under the Auckland Emergency Management Incident Management structure have been going well and have been going for quite some time now. But just as an overview for you, we have developed through the 0800 process, we have actually been relying on our call centre quite greatly, and we're very appreciative to the staff in that area who have been working long hours to support the process in this. We've also deployed staff from within Council's normal business as usual roles and brought them into the fold at Auckland Emergency Management to help us to conduct targeted callbacks to people that have been identified through their contact with the call centre as requiring a follow-up. We continue to provide liaisons to Auckland Regional Public Health Service and the the Northern Regional Health Coordination Centre in their support to support their daily activities, as well as to ensure that we have good connectivity across all services that we're providing together. We have actually also received some liaisons into our incident management team here, and predominantly from police, fire and New Zealand Defence Services, and they are working with us on a day-to-day basis to ensure that connectivity across our agency remains very strong. We are also at this stage conducting some comprehensive contingency planning as per the directive from the National Director, and this is across two scenarios, and we've added a third for ourselves. The first scenario was for severe weather events. The second scenario was earthquake, which for our focus would be to support the relocation of government, and the third that we have included is our ongoing water issues. So I can confirm that we have very strong contingency plans in place to ensure that Auckland Emergency Management and Auckland Council is able to respond to any other hazards that may or events that may arise whilst we are working in the response for COVID-19. And I can confirm part of this is identifying key personnel who can lead a incident management structure. Just finally on my last policing matter, checkpoints and roadblocks is a very high level topic and very keen topic in the media and across agencies at the moment. So I can confirm a few things for you. New Zealand Police are leading checkpoints and roadblocks, and we provide support to them in regards to information and resource in some areas in the administrative side of this. So just to be clear, checkpoints are to confirm compliance with notices under the Section 70 bracket 1 of the Health Act, and roadblocks act to stop all access into an area. So the checkpoints that are in place, we'll have 8 checkpoints in place, across the 3 policing districts here in Auckland. I'm not able to read out those locations and timings at the moment, but I can confirm that there are 8 checkpoints. However, as per the rights under their powers in the Act and the directives, the police have made the decision to not erect any roadblocks. So checkpoints must be supported by New Zealand Police District Commanders and be suitably tactic to reduce the risk of COVID-19 in the context of a region. What this means is that we are discouraging communities to erect their own checkpoints and roadblocks. An application must be made to the national agencies by communities to do this. I've asked for further clarification as to how we can do that, because we are not the conduit for those applications. Once I have that detail, I'll ask that this is put into the status updates that are sent to you on a daily basis. But in short, it is the Director of Civil Defence Emergency Management, which is Sarah Stewart-Black, who will put the proposals to an all-government response team. As I said, though, we will confirm how we escalate which agency, collates and escalates any request to have roadblocks or checkpoints erected. I'll ensure that some further information is available to you tonight in the status update on this. However, this is an ever-moving environment for us in the area of checkpoints and roadblocks, so the information that we receive later this evening is more robust. And my final thing to point out is, and I did hear the Mayor say this earlier, and I thank you for this, is we are doing some key public messaging around the Easter weekend. And we have a very strong message that the level 4 restrictions requires everybody's help across the weekend. If we lapse at this point, we literally are putting lives at risk. And unfortunately, this does mean that some of our more favoured traditions will need to be done at another time, or we might need to find another way to do these. So again, this evening we will ensure that in the status update we provide you with some key public messaging that we would really appreciate your help in spreading through the communities. So that's quite a comprehensive update, so I will pause here and pass to Ian, who can provide the update on behalf of Auckland Council.
Thank you very much, Kate. And I can confirm the checkpoints are out and operating. When I left the Skype meeting from here last night, I was pulled over by a checkpoint on Union Street, and the big group of officers, very polite, said, "Oh, that's okay, Mr. Mayor, we know why you're out and about. Please go through." I just want to add, because somebody did ask me about it, why am I coming into work for a conference like that? I had IT from council come out to inspect my cell phone coverage the day before lockdown, and they confirmed that it was about the worst in Auckland on both fronts. So I have no choice but to operate IT out of the building, otherwise these meetings wouldn't be reliable. Ian, I think you're going to add to that, and then we'll take questions.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. Look, I'll be very brief. I'll cover basically the essential services that are managed through the Auckland Council Group. And I just want to highlight that in each case, we've set in place procedures around splitting our key teams such that if a COVID case does emerge within these areas, that we will not lose the whole service. So I'll just run through what those services are. Water care is obviously key in terms of the provision of water and wastewater services. The ongoing drought is still being managed, but look, I think everyone's aware that the the storage lakes and so forth are very low, or comparatively very low compared to where they would normally be, and we are putting in place some contingency planning around a situation that if we do get into a drought and we may need forms of restrictions, water restrictions, how we might go about deploying those. In terms of Auckland Transport and the provision of public transport in particular, I think their latest figures are around 13,000 being carried each day, so a much reduced level of patronage of that, but they're maintaining those services, and they've put in place procedures whereby their bus drivers and so forth are protected. The refuse waste collection services, domestic waste collection, well, I think you're aware of where we are with respect to that. Those services are continuing to be provided. Our cemeteries are managing the new funeral requirements that were released by the Ministry for Health recently, and we've also put in place contingency planning around what would occur if the worst occurs within our community. And in terms of stormwater, another key essential service, so the focus there has been on ensuring, as a result of the, we received advice earlier this week of a potential storm hitting us over Easter, and so a lot of work has gone into clearing cesspits and so forth, and also to ensure that our contractors are able to get out and work with removing trees and tree damage. As it seems, the weather forecast has reduced that somewhat, but it does indicate that we are able to prepare for an event should another event occur. Look, I'll stop there. I'm sure our councillors have many queries, and between Tanya Winslade, who's also on the line, Kate and myself, I'm sure we can answer them.
Thank you very much, Ian. Before I go to questions, and I'll do questions as in previous meetings, I'll take it alphabetically in order and then the reverse order. I'd like to ask Sharon Stewart and Wayne Walker to move and second the report as the chair and the vice chair of the Emergency Committee. Both of you ready?
Yes, happy.
Thank you.
Right, so thank you very much for those presentations, for Tanya for also being on the line and available to answer questions. So councillors and IMSB members, I'll just work my way through the list. One question each, please, unless there's a pressing need for a supplementary to clarify something, and if you can make it succinct. First of all, Deputy Mayor Bill Cashmore.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Well done, team. My question is a very simple one. How many staff do we have currently out assisting other agencies to provide services to the public?
Thank you very much for your question, Deputy Mayor. At the moment, it is 54. However, I have questioned our logistics team to provide a more robust understanding of the 54, because this does not include the 40 staff that have gone to MSD to support the callbacks. So my estimate is 94. However, I can provide further clarity and have that to you later today.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Kate. Councillor Josephine Bartley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Kate, for your report. And Ian, my question is, how do I give you guys a massive hug for the work that you're doing? I am so, I don't know, it's just awesome to hear about the work that we're doing, supporting people in their time of need with the food parcels and with the homelessness. Natalie's been amazing. So yeah, I just want to thank you so much for the work that we're doing there. Really unfortunate that it's such large numbers of calls coming through, but it just shows the need out there. So it's not really a question, but I just wanted to get that in now and say thank you so much for the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you very much, Councillor. Maybe you could send some hearts across the screen here and make that a virtual hug. But I think everyone in this room would echo those thoughts to Kate, Ian, Tanya and teams for the work that you're doing. Much appreciated. Councillor Kathy Casey.
Oh, hi Phil. Can you hear me okay?
Your communication is perfect today. Thank you. It's on
Excellent.
the phone on the slide, I believe.
My question relates to a previous briefing where Ian said that not all frontline staff yet had PPE. Can I now have an assurance that all of our staff and those of the CCO who are still in the front line doing essential work now have all the protective clothing that they need?
I probably can't give that assurance here. I can get back to you. I know those involved who are out dealing with the public have personal protection equipment, but in terms of all of our frontline staff, I can't give that assurance.
If I may, in addition to that, I can confirm that all staff aren't working under Auckland Emergency Management who are out in the public do have PPE and have to go through quite a comprehensive health and safety briefing every morning before they go out into the public.
And can I just ask what our view is as a council on the wearing of masks for those frontline staff?
Very interesting question. Who wants to give an answer to that one? It's still being determined at the central level. I think we're waiting for a WHO recommendation, but
yes.
Ian or Kate might be able to update us.
I mean, I don't have any more than what the Mayor has just said. It's obviously been an area of debate, and it's we do take our lead with respect to health issues from the Ministry and where they and the advice they give. If they advise us that we must provide masks and require people to wear masks, we will do that. But at the moment, that is not the case.
I can confirm from attending the Food Distribution Centre, we went through all of the processes, temperatures taken, we were wearing masks as a precaution, we were wearing gloves, and we were maintaining the 2 metre distance. So I think we're doing the critical things that are asked of us, Councillor. Councillor Efeso-Collins.
Oh, thanks, Mayor. No questions from me.
Thank you. Councillor Pipacoon.
Kia ora, thank you. Thank you for the report, Kate and Ian, and really appreciate hearing what's happening from the front line, and agree with the comments made by Councillor Bartley in terms of just seeing the width of things that are being put in place supporting our communities. The question I had was just in terms of, we have still got people out doing essential work, and Ian mentioned about clearing trees for storm damage. I've been concerned to see that there have been harassment of workers who are doing essential work where members of the public have jumped to the conclusion that this is council being sneaky, trying to get, say, tree pruning out the way. Can I just ask, is emergency management involved in that, or is it a matter that just needs to be referred to the police? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that comment, Ian. If I may go first, and then I'll pass to you. Unfortunately, Civil Defence Emergency Management is unable to intervene at this within this issue. However, what I will be doing is making contact with Ian after this to ensure that our public messaging can include something along the lines of, if you see our staff conducting services such as this is why. We may also, we were going to include that in regards to our ongoing water delivery services. We had received some information this morning that there was concerns there as well, so I will link in with Ian. But as an AEM perspective, the best that we can do is support Ian and the council team in this area. Ian, I'll pass to you.
Oh, look, thank you, Kate. Look, this is an issue that isn't just affecting Auckland Council staff. It's affecting supermarket workers and even people delivering medical services. So look, it is a matter which you'll see much more of a focus on nationally, and part of that will include the work undertaken by activity or by agencies such as council.
Thank you very much, Ian. Councillor Linda Cooper.
Thank you, and just echoing, I think everybody would echo Councillor Bartley's comments, but won't take up time with that. My concern is around the whole issue of roadblocks, and I know Councillor Casey was saying up at Whananaki, the community have done one. My piha people are interested in doing that as well, or some of them were, some of them weren't, and you said that it was really had to be police sanctioned. My concern is about that happening anyway, and members of our community are not trained usually in conflict resolution and those sorts of issues, and that's my concern that people might be doing this and then get into incidences where it's not safe for either.
Sorry, you've just dropped out there.
Oh, sorry. What did I start? Oh, okay. Where did you get to?
I think we got the key question. It's about roadblocks.
Yeah, basically about untrained community people doing these roadblocks, and what have we got where police can actually either go and stop it or make it sanctioned and give people good tips on how to behave if they're going to be doing this on behalf of the police?
Okay, Kate or Ian?
Yes, thank you very much for raising that point. That is a key concern for civil defence groups and police across the country. It's about ensuring the safety of the public that may actually live in the area and are travelling for appropriate reasons. It's also about ensuring the safety of the people that feel that they do need to pop a roadblock up for their community. In my discussions with our district commander, I've raised these points myself. What has been passed to me through her and our liaisons is that once the police are notified that there is a roadblock or a checkpoint put up by communities that has not been sanctioned, they are paying a visit. They're not looking to necessarily have a confrontational conversation with them, but they will have a conversation with them about appropriate ways to conduct what they're up to. So, like I mentioned earlier, I am waiting for some further information from them, and I'm hoping that part of that information will be stronger advice in this area.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, can I just understand that? So
yep, Linda,
when this is happening in our communities, especially our coastal communities, when we're asked by our community, is this okay, isn't it? It sounds like there's a sort of a tacit approval by police as long as they've been to visit and give them tips. But am I right or not? I want to know what I'm to say if I'm asked.
Yes, so the official advice that we have received from the National Crisis Management Centre as part of the overall directive is that these checkpoints and roadblocks are not okay and are to be discouraged. However, the police here in Auckland are trying to find a way to work together with communities to address their concerns. So that's why I've also asked for further clarity on their remarks around how they're managing the process, because I too would like some clarity about whether or not they will be stopping the roadblocks or asking them to dismantle them, or if they will just have a conversation with them and advise them on how to handle their behaviour appropriately. So once I have that further detail, we will ensure that it's shared.
Thank you very much.
That's probably as clear an answer as we're able to get at the present time. Councillor Angela Dalton.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. And thank you to Ian and Tanya and Kate. And please know that all the work you're doing is giving a sense of calm throughout the community, so it makes a difference. My question is around PPE, just following up on Councillor Casey. I know that we're still waiting for direction from WHO, but in the event that we move to level 3 and there is a change as to who must wear PPE, will we have a consistent approach as best we can across council and the CCOs? And secondly, who is responsible to ensure there's a coordination of the PPE so that Auckland as a whole will be covered by PPE?
So I can pick that one up, Kate, if you like. There's we have a crisis management group which works right across the CCOs and the Auckland Council itself. And so we would use that group to actually manage the deployment of PPE, and we would obviously give priority to those, as Kate had outlined, to those dealing with the public. So we would have a consistent approach, and we would probably have a centralised management system of the PPE that we have in a similar way as we developed for sanitizer prior to the declaration of Alert 4.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, Councillor Christabi.
Thanks, Mayor. Morning, everyone. Look, largely the COVID operations response workstream is well underway, and I too congratulate the staff. It's largely in hand, and it's an operations issue, and that's what the machinery of our council does really well. My question, Mayor, is probably related to that. But not an operations issue, it's to the Chief of Strategy. And following our conversation a couple of weeks ago when COVID was really well evident, what is the status of Council's strategy response work streams at this time, and when will we see reports coming through the Emergency Committee that inform us of different scenarios going forward, and when they are coupled with our financials, we're informed decision for Auckland's future?
Okay, it cut out a little bit at the end of that, but I think Megan got the gist of that question, so I'll ask Megan Tyler to reply.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the question. Look, we, obviously we are focusing on the operational responses, but look, we've already started doing some thinking about that broader, more strategic view about the future or kind of recovery and what that could look like. So we've started that work, Councillor Darby. Look, we haven't fully formed them into kind of big work streams, I guess, at this point, but we are working and I will certainly come back to you with some progress and work through the chair of the Emergency Committee around this into the future.
Thank you very much. Councillor Alf Filipina.
Thank you, Your Worship. And a comment as well, or wait till you go back the other way?
Just a question, I think, at this point. We will have comments, although I'll again ask people to be quite succinct in those comments. So a question at this point, if you've got it, Councillor, or
okay.
Comments.
Yep. No, thank you. So the question is to Tania. Tania with Pou Whakarai. Can I just confirm that my colleague on Te Maruata, Tipa Mahuta, has contacted and is linked in with you in regards to marae that she shares in Tāmaki from the Waikato Regional Council?
Kia ora, Councillor. Look, we've had a number of queries from those marae down there, and one of the issues that we're just currently having quite active discussions about relate to those on the border. So we are progressing those, and I'm aware of them, and they are coming through the Pou Whakarai channels.
So I can confirm that there is a discussion with Tipa?
Sorry, I don't have active overview of precisely what's in the log at the moment, but I am aware of several of those conversations, and I will follow that up for you specifically, Councillor, after this.
Thank you.
Thank you. And maybe if I could just ask the question arising out of a discussion I had yesterday with Councillor Filipina. It's good to see that we're working with the marae. This is to Kate, I think. Kate, can you give us some information? I know that there are some Pacifica groups that also wanted to work on food packages, specifically in the south. Have you had any approaches from them, and how should they go about making an approach? And the second part of that question, can you just give us an update in terms of the
I'm sorry, I've lost audio.
I can't hear. Let me repeat that again. This question came from a discussion I had with Councillor Filipina. There are some Pacifica groups that would like to work in the distribution of food packages. Who should they approach in order to facilitate their involvement in the process, or can they have involvement in the process? And secondly, what are you doing with the normal food banks in terms of ensuring adequacy of food supplies to the existing food banks that are still operating?
Thank you very much for those questions. I can confirm that there's been quite a bit of work between Auckland Emergency Management and the Northern Region Health Coordination Centre, who have an active Pacifica needs group formed. At this point, it's the same process for all at the moment, that if you have any request to come through, that it comes through to our generic email accounts that have been socialised with you, and I will make sure that, again, that's put in the status updates this evening, so you will have a pathway for these requests to us. what we do then is if it's something that we cannot assist with, we ensure that the Northern Region Health Coordination Centre is contacted and that they pick up the request, and then they provide us an update once they've closed that off. I'm not aware of anything that's come through directly apart from one request I had earlier in the week that I had passed into welfare to deal with, but I can go and confirm what requests we have had in that area. And in regards to supporting the food banks, there is quite a comprehensive process in place at the moment to support all food banks across Auckland. We are also getting national support for that process. I would have to check with our welfare team for further operational detail though.
Thank you very much. And just contrary to what a radio station said during the week, please don't turn up at Spark Arena. We're working through our contact group. I think they said if you need the food package, go to Spark Arena. That is absolutely the wrong message to give. Councillor Christine Fletcher. Chris, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm on the line. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian, for the advice you've given us thus far on PPE. I do think that as soon as we can get uniformity across all the agencies, it will be desirable. But my question today relates to the fact that while we've had this golden summer, winter is falling, it's coming, and none of us can anticipate the types of storms and so forth. So without alarming people, I'd like to feel that if we do get some extreme weather, that households are equipped with torches, the normal things that we do should our utilities go down for whatever reason. How can council work to ensure from an information and educational sense that people have got batteries, if they're doing their regular shops, that they've got torches, and those sort of things that you would normally need in the event that there should be some extreme weather conditions? I've got every confidence that Vector and our utilities are working to prevent this, but no one can say with certainty. So just would be interested in your thoughts on that.
That may be Kate, I think. Kate, you've got a response on that.
Thank you for the question. It's a very good question, and what I can confirm is that at Auckland Emergency Management in our business as usual environment, we have seasonal campaigns in place, and I don't have any of the information at hand in regards to when that will be starting, but we do every season do a comprehensive campaign reminding people about what they need to do to ensure that they themselves, their family and their properties are ready for events such as storms. I will confirm the details with my public awareness team as to when that will be taking place. I also know that there's a national campaign that will be kicking off in the next few weeks. I'm assuming that ours is aligned, and I do apologise I don't have that information on me at this point.
No, that's fine. But I just know how much myself, I'm dependent on watching television and listening to sources of information. So I was giving myself a mental jog today to make sure I've got a transistor with some batteries and things on hand. So I'd appreciate an update. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Shane Henderson.
Thank you. I guess just a really quick question. Are there any civil defence risks for when the lockdowns are lifted and we go through the stages in terms of crowds and people rushing out of their homes? And have we kind of looked at that a little bit?
Yes, again, very good question. Thank you, Councillor, if I may, Mayor. We are working now across our regional partners from a civil defence emergency management lens. We're working on our recovery planning. Part of that is about ensuring that we're aligning with the national messaging and also the national decisions around how they will do a phased move from level to level. We're still waiting for them to provide the information on how we will be moving from level 4 to level 3 and so on. My understanding is that it will be a phased approach, and we are anticipating this. Our recovery planning is looking at how do we ensure some key activity across civil defence emergency management across the country, but most importantly in our region, to support information to the public and good advice, sound advice, as well as to provide support to Ian and the crisis management team here at Council in regards to how we would do our resumption planning.
Thank you. Councillor Richard Hills.
No, I'm fine, thanks. Just a massive thank you again to everyone. It's pretty intense times, and they're doing a fantastic job, and people are noticing, and people will really appreciate this help at this time. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Tracy Mulholland.
No questions. Brief comment of thanks.
Yep, we'll come back to comments in a moment. Councillor Daniel Newman.
Yeah, look, thank you very much. No questions from me, but Kate, thank you very much for all the fantastic work that you do. It's been amazing, and that's my comment, so no need to come back to me, Your Worship.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Greg Sayers.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Ian and Kate. My question today, Mr Mayor, may be more directed to you, and you touched on it a little bit earlier in our session today. That's relating to when we might get the options or the financial impact paper through to us about the different scenarios that we might face, because obviously this all feeds into it. So I'm just curious what our anticipated day next week might be.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. The paper will go first to Audit Risk on Tuesday, I think, the Tuesday after Easter, and then it will come as a recommendation from that committee to the Emergency Committee on Thursday. The information I've had foreshadowed is highly confidential because we list on, with our bonds on the New Zealand Stock Exchange, so we need to be careful about what we say. But I'm hoping that information, I'm just looking if anybody has any advice in this room, but it would get to councillors, I imagine, on Wednesday. Stephen, is that correct? Yep, I'm getting a nod from Stephen. So you get the papers there, but they will be discussed under confidential for the reasons that I've set out. And the chair of the Audit and Risk Committee, Sue Sheldon, did ask that that point be absolutely emphasised. When we talk loosely about things and it's taken to be council policy, that can have an impact, and the stock exchange will indicate a degree of nervousness about that. So we need to make sure that our comments are properly couched and that we maintain appropriate confidentiality. Is that clear, Greg?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Desley Simpson.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Your Worship. Look, I have a question, but it is a bit rhetorical. Look, thank you for your update. I just hope that you guys are looking after yourself. This is a hugely busy time for you, and we appreciate all the support that you're giving, both to Auckland and to us. But I just hope that you're looking after yourselves, and thank you.
Thank you, and I think that applies to all of our councillors as well. Councillor Sharon Stewart.
Oh, thank you. I'm probably just the same as everybody else. I want to really thank you, Kate and Ian and all the team. But one of the questions, I was just listening very carefully when you were talking about the vessels that possibly had been breaching out in the ocean. Do we know how many approximately people are actually self-isolating in boats? I know that the Coast Guard, before we actually went into lockdown, were telling everybody that they didn't want people to go out onto the water, and I know just of last week there were people in my neighbourhood who were actually taking groceries onto the boat and going out, and I don't think it's where they were, I think they were first locked down in their own private homes. So I'm just wondering, do we actually have the numbers on that? Because I think the Coast Guard are going to be kept pretty busy. I'm just looking out my window now with the extreme weather that we're now getting. So do we have numbers on how many people are actually self-isolating on vessels out in the ocean?
Thank you. I'll ask Kate to address that question.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Councillor Stewart. I have actually asked the same question of our operational team this morning to confirm the numbers with police. I will email that to you later this afternoon. I'm also working with Coast Guard to gain an understanding of the trip reports that they have taken over the past 2 weeks whilst we've been in level 4 lockdown. So when a vessel leaves the harbour and returns, they provide detail to Coast Guard. So I've asked for that as well. So once I have that, I'll be able to confirm for you.
Thank you, Kate. IMSB Chair. Oh, sorry, Sharon, you've got
Sorry, just one other thing. Just looking at my window, you know, the weather was pretty extreme just a few minutes ago. It's just calmed down again. Can we just make sure that just as we're speaking, Kate, maybe can we try and get some messaging going out on the radio and TV, just making sure that people start just clearing their drains and their gutters and because we have something else that might be thrown at us as well as the COVID-19. So just to try and, you know, set the scene. Thank you.
Kate, you've got any comment on that?
Yes, I will be able to look at a proper comprehensive campaign, Councillor Stewart, and I'll advise you this afternoon as to which actions we'll take.
My understanding is that Sunday we might be expected to have severe weather. We hope that it's more rain than wind, but it'll probably be the opposite way around under Murphy's Law. So, come back, sorry, to IMSB Chair David Taipere.
Kia ora, Your Worship. Kanui to me, kia koutou e tēnei wā. Just have, well, I want to ask a bunch, but I'll have one question, and that is, consider like we're getting, and I've said this last time, some general statements around Māori outcomes. So my question is, when can I get a written specific reply to understanding what budget provision has been made to address for Māori outcomes? Has the $4.3 million of underspend in Te Toa Takatini been considered as to be reprioritised for this purpose? What does outreach program mean? Is the distribution of health-related information a duplication? What does non-health related activity mean? What does welfare callback result in? What is the result of the ongoing check calls that have been made? What is the result of the tangihanga discussions? And what is the engagement framework for the recovery plan? And lastly, what support has been provided to His Worship to have direct contact with the leaders, Māori leaders? Thank you.
Thank you. I've probably counted about 12 questions there. What I might ask Tony is to address the key questions out of that, and then maybe, David, if you got something online, because there are quite an extensive list of questions there, maybe Tanya could address those directly to yourself and Karen.
Well,
maybe copy to the rest of us. But
if I can, Your Worship, if I can say, it was one question, and that is, when can I get a written, detailed response to those matters? That's the question.
Okay. Yeah, no, and that's the point I'm saying, because there are a lot of different aspects to that. We won't cover all of them now, but Tanya might like to comment on some of the issues you've raised, and then directly give you a written report on that.
Thank you.
Sure. Tēnā koe. So perhaps if I answer the first question around Māori outcomes and the underspend. So the Māori Outcomes Steering Group, we met twice last week under urgency. So the group includes representation from across the council, CCOs and the IMSB Secretariat. The outcome of those meetings was to review the current status of all projects and likely impact given COVID-19. The inevitable impact of the current situation is that those projects are being slowed. However, the steering group and also our executive team have agreed that given our obligations to our treaty partnership and otherwise, where possible, if it makes sense to do so, projects should continue. We have also considered how we might set aside that funding, which we know is consistent with our Māori Outcomes framework to support Māori-led responses and recovery. We're currently working through that and happy to talk to you further about that or the Secretariat. I have extended an offer to the Secretariat to provide them an update whenever they so wish. They have my number. So I think that responds to that. In relation to the functions that we're currently doing, you asked about the distribution of health information. Is it a double up? No, it wasn't. We were instructed by the NHRCC to do that. And in terms, I think the other question, Member Taipari, was around the outreach and what does that look like. We have very strict protocols here to log everything that we're doing within Auckland Emergency Management. We have people redeployed and rostered on to be regularly checking in with Marae, Mata Waka and iwi, so that is happening on a consistent basis. They then need to feed in the outcome of those conversations back into the log, and that becomes something that we then need to action. In relation to, I think it was your last question about what support is being given to the Mayor to engage with iwi leaders, we're having discussions currently about that.
Thanks, Tanya. If maybe we could take up David's suggestion, and if you've got a note of all of those questions, to have something in writing both to the IMSB but also copied to other councillors might be helpful to us in case we get similar questions.
Your Worship, I'm happy to provide those that I want clarification on, but the real question I did ask was, when can I receive such?
We've got a time frame for that, please, Tanya.
Look, I'll undertake to do that within the next week. You'll appreciate that me and my team are working very long hours at the moment, and we will do our best.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wayne Walker.
Sure. Just got a suggestion and a question. Certainly endorse the comments about getting a message out around issues that might go to a storm event. Completely endorse that. The other issue I just want to raise from a civil defence perspective that I've personally faced is difficulty accessing things when businesses aren't identifiable. You can't get hold of them, so you need after-hours numbers or private numbers. So I've had a requirement, for example, to organise a hire truck and various things to cope with essential services, and it's been quite difficult locating these things. The general issue is the requirement that we used to have that I was familiar with in the North Shore and Rodney, where there was an extensive distributed database with after-hours contact numbers for all sorts of things so that you could obtain them, and a welfare network. So I've just got a general question that I don't need answered now, but I'd like to know what the status of that is and what there is that I can access in my civil defence capacity.
Thank you. Kate, any comment on that?
Yes, I thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Councillor. Yes, we have access to many services that operate after hours. That is done via our arrangements through logistics. In your civil defence emergency management capacity, yes, I'm willing, if you can use the channels that we've set up for requests and or for comments that are coming through to AEM via Phil Wilson and his team. If it comes through via that point, we can arrange that contact for you. I will confirm with my logistics team how the database is tracking and exactly what it's covering at the moment.
Thank you.
The particular issue is if there is something that happens that's a significant event and you're operating off a centralised communications channel, the likelihood that that goes down. So if you've got a distributed, decentralised system with welfare, with databases that are distributed, you can circumvent that. So that's my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor John Watson.
Yeah, thanks. Just firstly, I'd like to reiterate Councillor Casey's expectation that any of our staff have access to the full range of protective equipment, including masks for their own peace of mind, and I'm sure that will be taken on board and will be getting implemented. But there are quite shocking examples of exceptions and various people that are out. So I'm just assuming, as always, that our council is right on top of that. My question goes to the calls that for assistance, Kate, and whether it's possible to get some sense of the geographic spread, so we get a sense of maybe what's happening in our own communities. And in relation to that, I know the City Mission has a well-oiled machine there. My concern is with some of the outer suburbs where there are people in a pretty dire strait too, but who are a lot more isolated and don't quite have the same access to help facilities. Do we have any sense of what's happening out in the suburbs a bit, both south, north, and west for that matter?
Sorry, I have a delay in my audio here, so apologies for the pause there. Thank you very much, Councillor, for those questions. Just to cover off, firstly, actually, your concerns about the activities in the suburbs, our welfare team is actively working with providers in all areas for people that we're discussing here. So not just the City Mission, but for example, through Vision West Out West, they're bringing together a lot of the providers for that area that we're working with, as an example, to ensure that we're reaching as many new Aucklanders as we can, regardless of their situation. So there is a robust welfare process around that. I do apologise, the first part of your comments did break up, so I think my connection's not working very well, so I may have to ask you to repeat the first part of your comments.
So it was just, the question was whether it's possible to get some sense of where the calls are coming from, and we can take an educated guess, but it would be useful for us to know if there are pockets that are in our own communities that we might be able to help in some way too.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Yes, so actually our intelligence function is currently working on doing some heat maps that cover off exactly this point, and it will have some commentary along with it. We're just waiting to confirm a few more pieces of information with our databases, and hopefully that will be up by the end of the week.
Thank you. That'll be really useful if we've got an idea of a breakdown, and any other material information that we're getting actually from our staff as they take these calls, just to give us a clearer picture of where the need is and where it's arising from. Next question, IMSB member Karen Wilson. Are you on the line, Karen?
Kia ora, Phil. Unfortunately, Karen couldn't get on through technical difficulties, so
okay.
She's an apology.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Councillor Paul Young.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question. How's the operation and the workload in our call center during the lockdown? And then I suppose the language lines still working together? Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's Kate again.
I do apologise, it's breaking and hearing every second word, but I believe the question was in regards to our call centres. I'm sorry to ask you to repeat yourself, but do you mind repeating the question?
Yes, just asking how's the operation and the workload in our call centre during the lockdown? And I suppose our language lines still work together. Thank you.
Oh, yes. So thank you very much for your question there, Councillor. So the workload in the call centre is obviously increasing. So every time that the number is publicised, we see quite an increase in calls. So we initially had, I believe it was about 40 call centre staff. My team have been working with them actually as we speak, talking about ongoing process and staffing requirements so that we have the ability to ramp up the service if required. But there is two parts to the call centre process. There is the incoming calls and there's our outgoing calls. So at the moment we have approximately 20 staff doing outbound calls, and again we will be able to increase that if required. So the call centres for us here in regards of physical distancing, that's what we're now referring to it as, is physical distancing. We're able to achieve that in both these areas. So only a small percentage of our staff are actually co-located in one location, and we have had pre-identified appropriate desk placements at which our facilities team did prior to the lockdown starting.
Thank you very much for that. Just one final question from me. I know that in order to get from alert level 4 to 3, we're going to have to increase our testing, our contact tracing, and strengthen our border quarantine and isolation measures. In terms of the contact tracing, have we had an approach from the Ministry of Health for additional assistance in contact tracing, and what capacity have we got to help in that regard? That could be to Kate again, or Ian. Kate,
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, so we have actually deployed personnel since the very beginning of this, back late February, I believe it was. So some of our environmental team have been supporting border activities for the health screening process there. About approximately a week to a week and a half ago, we deployed a number of staff across the Auckland Regional Public Health Service to help them with contact tracing processes, and we will continue to support that as long as a request comes through and the environmental team are able to provide the staff. I'll get those numbers for you offline. We will continue to provide support through the community-based assessment centres. At the moment, the only support that they've required from us is being a conduit of information to Auckland Transport's operations centre to support the monitoring of traffic and road closures for those for around those centres if required. However, we have also been asked to provide some administrative support on an ad hoc basis there. I'm in daily contact with the incident controller that is responsible for all of these processes, and on a daily basis we talk about how we may need to help each other in the future. No future needs have arisen as yet, but when they do, we'll ensure they're included in the situation reports.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's an area we'd like to help on, and I knew we had about 12, 15 environmental health officers that were assisting with contact tracing, which is really important. Council, as an IMSB chair, we're now just going to have a time for comment, but I've got a sense from comments that have been made so far that please make a comment if there's something really important to say. If not, we should be able to flick through this one quite quickly. But I do want to give everybody the chance to make a brief comment if they feel that that's imperative. So we'll start at the bottom this time. Councillor Paul Young.
No comment from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor John Watson.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Wayne Walker.
No.
Thank you. IMSB Chair David Taipere.
No comment.
Thank you. Councillor Sharon Stewart.
No comment, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Desley Simpson.
No comment, Your Worship.
Councillor Greg Sayers.
No further comment. Thank you.
Councillor Daniel Newman.
No thanks.
Councillor Tracy Mulholland.
Yes, thanks, Your Worship. As per my note in the conversation panel, I have a late question because I didn't ask a question. Mine is to Kate and the team. Are you aware of the situation with regards to the dumping of goods at Salvation Army and other sites, retail sites? I'm talking about their stores. And what are you able to do, if you're aware of it, to assist them? Because this is going to be, and whilst I did notice Councillor Hills commented for the Newland store in my area of the FO, and thank you for that, although I would have liked to have commented to the community. What are you able to do to assist them? Because this has actually become a problem. That particular store has always been an issue, but it is really worrying me because it's a mass dumping now.
Yeah, maybe that's a question to Ian, I'm not sure, but Kate, if you've got anything to say about it.
Mine, thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Councillor. It's a very good question. I am aware of this as I drove home past it yesterday and saw the issue arising and then saw the news reports. I have asked my logistics team to follow this up with Ian to see how we can support any Auckland Council process. So I might pass to Ian for a further comment.
Thank you, Ian.
I haven't got a ready answer right now, but look, what we'll do is we'll sit down with our refuse waste team and we'll see what we can do and we'll get back to you.
Yeah, I saw the item on television, and thank you, Richard, for your comments, which I thought were pertinent. Clearly there needs to be notices. Probably there are notices there to say, please don't leave the rubbish. They need to be large and this is not something that's just come about under COVID-19. It's an ongoing problem with a lot of our op shops. The suggestion might be to put a security camera in there so that we can follow up, trace and prosecute people who are behaving inappropriately. And a lot of this isn't goods that can be used. It's just rubbish, and they're using it as an excuse. So Ian, maybe if you can take that up with our waste management people, that would be appreciated. And thank you for the question, Tracy. It's a good question.
Mayor, I will note that there are cameras and there is surveillance and there are notices, so thank you for bringing that to the attention.
Good. Well, then I hope that we trace the people that have been dumping there, because unless we prosecute, people will keep doing it, and that's the whole message of having CCTV. So I'm really glad to hear that, Tracy, and I hope our waste management people, even with all of the things happening around us, this is unacceptable behaviour, and we need to send that message out. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Richard, Councillor Richard Hills.
No, thank you.
Councillor Shane Henderson.
Fine, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Christine Fletcher.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. Just a brief further question. I just want to have the assurance that where required, we can co-opt anyone that we require at this stage with the skill sets to take us forward, and that might relate to Megan Tyler as well.
Thank you. Who's going to have a go at answering that one?
Look, there's probably a couple of answers to that. From a Civil Defence Emergency Management perspective, the Group Controller has the ability to requisition people, essentially, but also equipment. But look, across our organisation, our wider group, look, we have some really highly skilled people, and this organisation is right behind the delivery of the COVID response. And yes, we can draw on individuals and skill sets from right across our organisation to ensure that we do the best for the Aucklanders out there.
Have you had specialised individuals volunteer their services?
Yes, I can answer that if you'd like, Ian. So we have had members of our wider Auckland Council personnel contact us to ensure that we understood their skill sets beyond just the employment status that they have here in Council. Also, in great partnership with our People and Performance team, we've developed they have developed on our behalf a skills-based register, which also looks at people not just as per the role that they're employed at Council in, but also the skill set that they have that we may not be aware of. And what we do when we have a request come from an external agency, we do a skill set match against that, and we can also ask People and Performance to go and clarify with our staff. And within Auckland Emergency Management, we have pre-identified people through our volunteer program that we can call on in the first instance. But if we require a specific skill set, for example, data management, we do know teams that do that during business as usual that we can call on, such as from Remo.
That's very helpful. I had a call from Sir Ralph Norris last night, who informed me that he would love to assist in any way using his professional skills, but that offer was declined. So I was just interested to know whether others had been also offering their services to Auckland Council pro bono. Thank you.
I have had some suggestions from people that they want to slash staff working hours by 80%, and I think we've politely declined that. We need our council to.
That was not my understanding of what he was wanting to do.
No, I wasn't addressing that specifically at the person you mentioned. Thank you for that, Councillor Alf Filipaina.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I know you mentioned the testing, so look, I acknowledge the thanks to the team who have presented, but I just wanted to mention also Claudia. Over the last 2.5 weeks, I've been contacting her and got the testing with South Seas up at the Otara town centre. So to Claudia, thank you, and to the Auckland Transport guys, and again, even with rooms that people are coming through, Your Worship, a lot of our Pacific groups are now asking for places where they could use council premises that they could use. So to put parcels together to deliver to our community, our Pacific community, especially with some of the groups. So I just wanted to acknowledge all the work that has been done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Chris Darby.
Nothing at this time, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Angela Dalton.
No, thank you.
Councillor Linda Cooper.
I just wanted to say I hope that our staff get a bit of family time this weekend and for everyone to stay safe, but no other questions.
Thank you. Councillor Pipacoon.
No additional comments to just what I said in my intro to my question. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Fesso Collins.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to say, to offer my gratitude to everyone who's been involved. I always enjoy these particular updates, and you can, at the coalface, you know that there's really great work going on. It's widespread, it's got huge impact. So I just wanted to offer my thanks to everyone involved.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Councillor Kathy Casey.
I'm all good, Phil. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Josephine Bartley.
No, thank you.
And Deputy Mayor Bill Cashmore.
Just to say a sincere thank you on behalf of the community to all our staff for the work that they're doing. It is much appreciated. And as Professor Collins said, it is widespread and very positive. So great work. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, councillors and IMSB Chair. Look, it seems to me we've probably canvassed this pretty well and might not need the briefing post the formal emergency committee meeting. So unless there's any strong views to the contrary, I think that will serve as the briefing. So we move now to item number 8, which is the item number 9. Sorry, I've got to put the motion. Moved by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Walker, noting the activities, and we could probably add to that and thanking all of those involved with the effort that they're making. So with the approval of the mover and the seconder, we'll add that in. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
To the contrary, no. Passed unanimously.